in this series, we tend to open up the first question strip it back to what it means to be human. And there's no better question than how are you feeling today and how are you arriving on this call?
Jacob, thank you. How am I feeling today? Everything's better in the sunshine. So, let's just say I woke up at 50%. I opened my window and I got to about 80 straight away. So I'm feeling kind of good, quite buoyant, quite positive. You know, usually the end of my week is just the end of the week. The end of my week this week is me getting on a plane, so really happy about that. So it makes the whole week different. Bit of sunshine, know that I'm going to be getting on a plane. Yeah, I feel okay today.
And for those that don't know, you're based in the UK.
Oh yeah. I'm London born and bred, and I'm still here.
And can you tell us a bit about yourself as a human and when you feel most alive? Like what kind of things bring you to life?
Well, mate, as I said, the first one, I mean, obviously waking up every morning, I'm thankful to wake up free to decide on my day. That feeling it will not leave me. It's one that I'm continually rewarded with on a daily, I suppose, due to previous or past experiences. So that is the first thing. I wake up, I appreciate my health. The sun always makes it better. And then having a purpose in my day, like what have I got to do today? What am I going to accomplish? What can I accomplish? These things always set my mood. I think, when I probably feel most human in every, at least once of every day is when I know I've got a crazy busy schedules back to back. I don't have time to take calls or have chats or other meetings, and then one of the students will call from prison, and I always take a call even when I'm trying not to. If that makes sense, because all the calls are always routed through my phones. And then I speak to a student and listen to their problems, try and help, try and resolve. It always makes me feel that much better. I think that's probably it. That my humanness is reflected in other people's eyes. So I suppose when it's reflected back like that, I think that's what does it for me.
Yeah, so I'm hearing like gratitude for the freedom and health and how that looks in practice, and then that feeling connected and being almost of service to other people. And
absolutely of service. Service is probably the way I put it in a word. Yeah.
Nice.
Amazing. And can you tell us, Dan, a bit more about your organisation and the work that you do?
Yeah. So my organisation is called DWRM, stands for Doing What Really Matters. It's also mine and my business partner's initials, so Dan Whyte, Ruth McFarlane. We are a higher education facilitator, which means that we incorporated to increase the provision of higher and further education across the prison estate for people with convictions. Yeah, so we do that. We partner with universities. We take courses and degrees from our university partners and make them accessible to people in prison. It's the most rewarding thing. I mean, DWRN is an absolute creation of my route through the criminal justice system. Ultimately, I picked a path that worked for myself, and I saw that it had the potential to work for many others, so many others, and so I with the inclusion of other universities, other education providers, other institutions that were and are willing to give off their time, make themselves available and accessible to our population of people is the most rewarding thing. Being able to being able to be the catalyst, or at least a pathway, a route, a way forward for people to capture that change that they want to live, they want to be, that they want to become. It's yeah, that's what does it. And that's what links to what I was saying earlier on about my object, and my new object, and what that will look like, because this is integral for what we've been trying to do. I mean, we have been lobbying and advocating for change across, especially across the education space within prisons. It looks like we're sitting on the verge of a absolutely massive change. So
Incredible. So you work at that individual kind of prison level, but also at that kind of policy level as well.
absolutely the two, it's proof of concept, whilst and then which becomes positive pressure on government, because we're like, the more access we give to the populations, the more people that start to study, the more people that are successfully completing their studies, and the more people that are out here surviving off the back of completing their studies successfully. All we're doing is singing that case for more, effectively, for more access, for more provisions, to be taken more seriously at a much earlier stage in sentences. We apply the pressure from both ends. We're producing, and guys themselves are producing their own stories, and we're able to use those stories, much like you guys do yourself, to put pressure on the policymakers, on government,
Yeah.
and it's working.
Can
And
you
so
tell
you
us a little
felt
bit more about just the
so,
origin story, I guess? Because I just think it's really interesting, because how DWRM started, what gap you saw existed, how you knew that gap existed, and yeah, how you kind of then tried to fill that gap.
Yeah, well, as I said, we ultimately based and started DWRM off the back of my story. I was someone who got a very long prison sentence, and I mean, ultimately, I entered my first serve in prison, and had decided I was going to start saying yes to things, start saying, start treating. I went to throw everything on his head. The things that I'd looked to and believed in and followed were what got me to the point that I was standing in. So I was like, I need to do things differently. Starting with my attitude, I had to fight against my own attitude. So start saying yes to things, i.e. that was, in this instance, me. I had previous negative experiences at school. I hated school, absolutely hated school. And in my head, somewhere along the line, that had got mixed up with learning itself. So in my head, I just hated learning, but that wasn't actually true. I just hated school. So finding a new love of learning was quite fortuitous in that instance. When I was look, I just got into prison. I got a hell of a long time to serve. It's literally a sink or swim moment. I'm either going to sink and become a statistic, another statistic, of prison, of the criminal justice system, of life, yeah, or I could swim, and that meant swimming up from the depths of of my situation at that point, which was, I was 23. I had a 20-year life sentence at that point. It was ridiculous. I couldn't even see the end of that pathway. So I was like, and what is sufficient to do that? What would be enough to, fill that gap, act as a rope, act as a ladder, out of that life? It was, education became that. Yeah, I decided to swim for all I was worth, and used effectively education to be that. And yeah, so I went from zero education, like I'd left school at 13. I started my whole journey through the prison estate, from my functional skills, maths, English, IT, to doing well there, and and then starting my GCSEs while they were still available in prison. So I did like 5 GCSEs and then 4 A levels after that. And then I was challenged to start a higher education course, which was at that point just an access course. Yeah, so, but even now, it still surprises me how much I enjoyed that study and that level of study, and that was the, you know, the birth of my future and ultimately what we did. So I started an access course, and then I wanted to go on and start the degree after that. Which in of itself was I was very fortunate at that point, because there was this was before the 6-year rule, but you still had to get permission from the governor of the prison you was in, and I didn't get permission at that point. And then there was some funding that was just available for people in prison at that point to get through do your first stage. So I jumped on that, and then was able to, as I said, very fortunate, then was able to get scholarships right through. I think my first year, I did so well that I was able to get the rest of that degree under a scholarship. And then that happened with my second degree, and then my master's. Yeah, but none of those were not. The first degree was the only degree that I was part, as I said, part funded for, and the rest of was scholarship. So after that, I couldn't do another degree, but I managed to be able to do another degree. I was just dogged and determined. I found a way to study. I found the funding. I wrote to about 1 million different people, organizations, charities, etc. And then I think the kind of defining moment came when I went to do my postgraduate, and there was no postgraduate in criminology available for people in prison. It just didn't exist with the provider that we had. So I was determined that's what I wanted to do. So I again got my pen and paper out, and I wrote to about 50 different universities, asking if I could study with them whilst I was in prison. And yeah, 49 said no, one said yes, or one said maybe. Was what they actually said, like maybe. How can we make that, do we have a way to make that a reality? And I pretty much laid it out. I had support outside here that were able to help me with my research. I had to support the prison, the governor, etc., etc. I had a really good education department at that particular point. So yeah, we cut a new pathway. Effectively, was doing something that hadn't been done. That was with Westminster. So they enabled me to start studying. And yeah, without any kind of real provisional support, I said all the elements that we kind of use now, which are, were taken exactly from that, because the ways I had to put it together, just to be able to get things like printing and research, printing and emails coming in, get that printed off and sent to me and given to me and whatnot. It was difficult. I had to have a member of staff over here doing that. I had a family member and a friend out here that used to do my research and turn it around and post it for me. It was crazy. But in my head, I was like, it kept me alive. It kept me buoyed, helped me to grow, but change, become who I needed to be. So the benefits far outweighed the difficulties and the headaches. So ultimately I was carving a path which we then replicated later on down the line. It was, we knew how it all worked. We just knew that not everyone would have family members out there to be able to do research for them. So we needed to put something like that in place. Not everyone would have the support. Not everyone would have that kind of determination or that doggedness or that self-belief enough to be able to write to many different units. So it was about, let's remove those barriers, and start building bridges for people in prison into the education providers. Kind of how that kind of went. That was a long-winded answer to a very
I don't know. It's brilliant. You want to say something, Jacob?
Talking a lot more about bridges and barriers as the conversation goes.
And just come into your objects that you mentioned, Dan, or object or objects.
Oh
We
yeah, yeah,
asked you
yeah.
to bring an object that represents a moment of humanness in your work. So would you mind sharing with your objects with us and explaining, yeah, why they represent humanness?
Okay. So wait, I'm just putting it up. So just in terms of, I don't know, I might have to, like, what I do there, screen share, yeah? To show it
That's
to
all right. We can do it afterwards.
All right, all right,
We
right.
can
So I'll just
attach a
tell you what it
screen
is.
share to it.
Basically,
Yeah.
so my object is the one, today's object, which I've just thrown in there, yeah, kind of turn everything on his head, was um so we all know that we know about the 6-year rule, yeah, for studying in prison, right? You cannot get a student loan unless you're within 6 years of your release or parole event. Okay, so we've been advocating for, I mean, the rule came out in 2012. We've been advocating since 2012 to get this rule changed, yeah, to get it removed, relieved, etc., etc. Mate, so the three departments involved are the Department of Education, the MOJ, and the Treasury, right? They are the ones that made the decision collectively in the first place. So obviously we've been working with the MOJ to get this rule overturned. I about a year ago I found a contact in the Treasury, and I've been working with this individual, like, on their bit, and all we were missing with the DOE. Anyway, long story short, the planets have all aligned. Yeah, so all the work what we've been doing is, finally they all turn around and we're like, okay, cool, we're looking to change this now. We've heard you. We're looking to get it. They want to do it for this, in time for this coming academic year, right?
Amazing.
So what they asked us to do was to just give them some evidence right now, anecdotal and case study evidence, right, so that they can make a decision, basically. So we put together a report really quickly. I mean, you would have seen it on LinkedIn. We put out a call for recently, right? So off the back of that call and reached out to all our networks, we've put together a a report which reads phenomenally well. This is going to be the deciding factor ultimately on this 6-year rule being changed. Obviously, we want it gone entirely, but I mean, realistically, we're expecting them to kind of double it to between 12 and 15 years, which it changes the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done the maths already. There's 7,500 people that instantly get into their window that have been trying to study just already. So they'll instantly be able to study or start studying
Wow.
right now. It's game changing.
Amazing.
It's absolutely game changing. So the report is all right. So obviously we done it as a team. I just sent it to one of my team, Max, to complete and finish, and he just sent it back to us. So it is phenomenal. Just you want to know about humanness? That's it right there. This is for me. Like it gave me a warm feeling just reading it. Do you know what I mean? Knowing the effect it's going to have, knowing that what it will do to so many people in prison is phenomenal. Changing, but when when I think about people that get 20 years plus for whatever reason, for whatever kind of offense, whatever that looks like, and they get into their sentence and they're like, right, I need to do something. I need, that light bulb moment, yeah, which every single one of us has. I don't care who you are, how ingrained in the criminal world you are, how far into your sentence, it doesn't matter. Everybody has that moment where they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something else. Most people look around and think, okay, what's my obvious answers? Education is always there, but then they'll be like, hold on a minute, I'm doing 20 years. I've got to wait 15 years before I can start a degree. There's nothing that can dim and kill a light than that realization, right? Okay, so being able to look and be like, okay, no, actually, I can start studying next year, as opposed to, yeah, it's a game changer. So this is kind of the reason why we do what we do. As I always said from the beginning, our goal as DWRM is to do ourselves out of business, like literally to when there's no need for us anymore. That's us working towards that. I think this is a massive step towards that. So there you go. There's my objective
Incredible.
today.
I love that. Love that. Yeah, such incredible work. And I remember working on that issue when I was at Prisons Education Trust, and many
Yeah.
people have
So
worked on those years.
right?
And
And we've been
yeah,
having those
that's
conversations
just
for so
fantastic.
many years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Max actually got
Incredible.
in touch with me as well.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, I know. I see everyone that you reached out to. I know. We spoke about all the most prominent like names and all that, you know, within our sector, which we, not to do some theatre show, but you know, really just to be able to say, look, to be able to touch base with people, you know, as touch points, people like
Yeah.
ourselves, would be like,
Yeah.
here's a recognized person who's studied in prison, who did it. Look what we're doing now. You know, it's all
Yeah.
of that. It's so important. So yeah,
And
yeah,
so
really excited about it.
so it's looking like they've got that report now. You've submitted the evidence.
Yeah, we've just
and
submitted. So now it's just about. So, I mean, imagine it's the MOJ pushing it forward, and they're very definite. You know that it's what will happen now. Basically, there's going to be some. It's just what it is, what that movement looks like, how much movement we get. We know there's going to be, as we said, the minimum would be for them to double that to 12 at least. But even that, I'm saying 50. I would like it gone anyway, because we don't have a cap here.
Yeah.
We have enough criteria that fits us all. But yeah, if we get between 12 and 50 years, we'll be very, very happy.
Yeah, because as you're saying, I was in a prison not too long ago, and I go to a lot of I go to the places like Dovegate and Loudham, and some of those places where like people are in there like life sentences, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I have conversations. I'm like, how are you so like? How do you find the hope, right? Like, how do you find? And this is the next question I'm going to ask you, is about drawing on your experience. What environments and relationships best support humanness in those prisons? And what you're saying there is, with this change, that could provide a lot of hope and a lot more human connection through education. If this was to come through, because just in case anybody's not clear, in the UK, if you have more than 6 years left to serve in prison, you cannot study higher education courses.
Well, you just cannot pay for it. So like everybody can get student loan out here as a free person in the community.
Yeah.
You can access a student loan in prison as long as you are within that 6-year rule. As we know, it's £30,000 to study just an undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
90% of people in prison do not have that money.
No.
Yeah, 90% don't have that money. Would never have the opportunity to have that money, and their family don't have it either.
Yes.
Yeah. So being able to get a student loan is the life-changing thing.
Yes.
It's access to study.
It's access to that loan that can provide all those people with more than 6 years left to be able to go into that study, which is what they want to do. If they've got that amount of time in prison to serve, how better to use it than to have a long-term educational pathway or goal of getting a degree, going for even for a PhD, who knows, postgraduate, masters, or multiple degrees. Really can help people have that hope and have that kind of those more human moments and optimism.
Absolutely. You know what it is, Jacob? It's not really about the qualification itself. That it is about everything surrounding and attached to the process of studying. Yeah. Now, ultimately, for people in prison, as you well know yourself, the greatest, the toughest chasm, gap, whatever you want to call it, to cross is identity. So being able to change your identity within your own mind, forget everyone else, because it starts here, right? With being able to change your identity when you look in that mirror from whoever you were when you came in to whoever you want to be when you come out is that absolute key. This is what higher education does. This is the thing it does so seamlessly, but so definitively. You can't go from the start of a degree to the end of the degree and be the same person. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. It just doesn't work. There's so much discipline involved, self-discipline involved in studying at that level. So much self-discipline and commitment that you can't. It's like you can't jump. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out. You're either. It forces you to be all the way in. And I love the way Nina's nodding, because she studies the way at levels we have. So I know you get it. And you've probably seen it 101 times over, right? All the people that we work with, that do the work that we do out here now, you know, how many of those people were like, look at education was so positive. It creates its own community within a prison. You know, people that I didn't even used to talk to on the wings. Yeah, I remember literally there was a guy who was always in my class. He was always in the study room because we was, you know, we were doing degrees, right? We didn't talk. We don't anti each other. We just didn't talk, different circles, etc., right? But he used to see me every day, back and forth, books in the classroom, etc. I remember I literally was losing it with a member of staff, one of the officers one day, like it legitimately so as well, right? But I was losing the plot, right? I could feel myself going over the edge. Imagine this guy come over and put his hand on my shoulder and was like, all he said to me was like, Dan, look, you got a lot to lose. I heard you saying you got an assignment to hand in and then an exam next month. Like, don't take away the opportunity to study.
Yeah.
I've never spoken to this guy, like not once. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he did like, literally community, and he was there to offer support, right, and just help me.
It's like the real human moment, isn't it?
It was a moment, like, you know, when I was just like in that second, I was like, I kind of looked at, as if to say, get off me, and then I was like, oh, who's this? What? And then it just landed. It's like, wow, you know, and he was just ready to support because he understood what I was going through. He understood what it was worth and what it meant, right? And he was like, don't lose it. Just that little thing.
Yeah.
I know it was a minor thing. I mean, I might have calmed myself. Who knows? But the fact that he reached out in that moment as well, while I was angry as well, right? Never spoke to me before, so you know, and I'm not a little guy, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, the fact that he reached out like that was it was phenomenal. that there was where I was like, you know what? And we used to, you know, people who studied on different wings, you know, you see guys, you wouldn't even really talk to them. You see them in education, and you might just nod. Do you know, right? Like, but you always recognize it was just like it literally creates its own communities of support. You know, across the whole spectrum of education. You know, like this is why what used to be Toe by Toes or Shannon Trust mentors is so popular, it's so consistent throughout prisons because we create communities. Education does that too, brings people together.
And after release as well, Dan, I guess, where people then go on and continue their studies and their learning.
Absolutely.
Outside prison as well.
Yeah. And we all find each other. Like everybody reaches out. Every single person who's studying, they come out. They, you know, whether they're studying with us or not, they always reach out. It's community building. It's phenomenal. Education is just one of them things. I love the language it speaks.
Yeah, and what would you say in terms of those moments of humanness? Because you've got that rare insight where you're creating those opportunities and those human connections now. You know, post-release and through the creation of DWRM. But then you've also got your experience when you was in prison yourself. So you've given us that example of a fellow incarcerated person giving you that moment of humanness and that relatability or someone also studying. How about like, was there a DWRM or was there like moments of humanness with officers at any time, or any other examples you can think of?
Absolutely, I've got a couple myself. I mean, one of the examples was, I mean, I'd probably say it weighed heavily on their decision to release me. It was in front of the Pro War because you know, I was accredited with saving an officer's life. And basically, she was just being attacked by some crazy weirdo and this is how far back it goes, metal buckets. When we used to have metal buckets in prisons, right? Big, heavy metal buckets. Yeah. Like the mop buckets, right? Yeah. So this guy was literally attacking her with a big, heavy metal bucket. So I just intervened, just dived on him, basically. I would like to say, and I'd like to believe that I would not stand there and let any woman be attacked, right? But I remember looking up, you know, as the incident was occurring, like I remember seeing, you know, taking in the scene, thinking, oh no. And then was like, hold on a minute, I know her. She's an education officer. That was literally what my brain did. I just shot into action. Do you know what I mean? So I'd like to think that, but I know that did have a bearing.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that I recognize, because she was one of those officers who was always, you know, always manned the education department, always looked after us guys, always
Yeah.
helped. Do you know? There'll be certain times I couldn't get my assignment up in time, you know, for posting and all that. I would literally shout Officer Kennedy and be like, "Oh, Miss Kennedy, can you get that?" She would she would go. Listen, I sent her up to education department on a Saturday afternoon, for crying out loud. She went and put my assignment on someone's desk, you know, ready for, you know, this was that officer. So it was an absolute pleasure being able to reciprocate.
Mm.
I mean, I didn't think it was a big deal, to be perfectly honest with you. I was just like, nah, that should be happening. They was talking about my parole board like 12 years later. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, for me, and then, and I would say, in a general sense, probably my best example of humanness with staff and officers is my chapter of my book that I wrote for the Good Prison Officer.
Yeah.
The idea of that book was to make relationships easier for both prisoners and staff, whilst going about their job, giving staff a bit of a cheat code in terms of this is how you get on with the prisoners under your charge and your care. This is how you don't make them erupt and jump around and be beating you around the head with mop buckets, right? Do you know what I mean? So, you know, giving that time and that effort without you know, any recompense. There was no, you know, we give all the proceeds of that book to charity, etc. So yeah, that I would say.
Yeah. And if anyone that wants to get that book, what is it called?
It's called The Good Prison Officer: Inside Perspectives. So it was it's 6 of us authors with lived experience who are all been to prison and all working in this sector in some way or another. Obviously, I'm in the education, others in addiction, and you know, everybody's in it in one form or another. It's quite phenomenal. So, and from different parts of the country as well. So yeah, kind of works.
Great. And here's the time to start imagining a little bit more. I know you said that your, you know, ultimate goal would be to put yourself out of a business. So if we had that magic wand and we were able to do something like that, or even more drastic in terms of transforming the justice system and making it more human, kind of what would be happening in that utopian world? What would it look like?
Well, that's the most simple, straightforward, clear vision in my own head right now. Look, and we call it utopia, but I try to keep it real, you know, doable, achievable. Now, we work to a stat, we work to a statistic, which wonderfully, right? For the last, we've been incorporated for 6 years. For the last 6 years, I've been spitting out this stat to people, anybody who will listen, and I've never heard anybody else say it. I've never seen it apart from the one place where, so obviously we created our own data, and I originally took the stat from the Justice Data Lab, right? And I've never seen it anywhere else, considering how impactful, how significant a statistic it actually is, right? Which I won't keep you in suspense anymore. But our stat is this: look, the current reoffending rates across England and Wales sit at about 56% over 2 years. So within 2 years, we know over half of people released from prison are going back. If you offset that stat against the amount of people who have, or for the people who have completed an undergraduate or more study whilst in prison, what do you think their reoffending rates are? What was that? I guess is that around about 20, 25. 6%, bro. 6%. Only 6% of people who've studied in prison go back to prison for anything, whether that be compliance issues, fresh offences. And in actual fact, you want to dig down into the study, as it stands right now, of that 6%, there's only 4% who committing fresh offences. Anyone else who goes back to prison is just for, like, I say just for, but, you know, non-compliance. Didn't tell their probation they changed address, or some minor nonsense, really. Yeah. Which is understandable in terms of a lot of us who haven't followed a lot of rules for a long time, but are not breaking any more laws. So 50%. Now let's do the maths. We spend, as a society, as a country, we spend almost 20 billion a year. 20 billion a year on that reoffending rate, right? On that. So just check it. I don't know about you. This is real life. If we pushed as many people or made it accessible and made it real for as many people as possible, both here and further afield, right? Let's just do Europe for a minute. There's over 1 million people in prison, 1.3, 1.293, and on million people in prison in Europe right now. So imagine if we did that across Europe. How many prisons would we close? How much money would we free up? How much? Look, this country, if we had 25% of the prison population studied at this level, we would take out 25,000 people out of prisons entirely that wouldn't be coming back. We wouldn't even need more money. We wouldn't need to change anything per se. We'd just have more room to be able to focus on the people that are left behind. Yeah. How much change could we do with an extra 20 billion and maybe 20,000 more spaces? That means that we'd be shutting prisons.
Yeah.
We'd have more officers per landing, per wing, it changes everything. Right? And it's quite achievable as well. That's my utopia. Right there. Our goal is to have 25% of the prison population studying higher education courses and degrees. That's our goal. If we get to that figure, then and we stay at that figure, it just stops. But literally, I don't know, give it 3 or 4 cycles, and we would have hardly anybody in prison.
Yeah. And you got to think of the ripple effects of that on people's children, families, their expectations in life, the kind of intergenerational impact, and the impact that it then brings to whatever sector those people go and work in, and
precisely, and on and on that goes. So that's why I call it. That's the utopia that I see, because it's a catalyst that moves everything along without having to add in any new. Oh, let's find another 100 billion to change this. No, we don't even need to do that because it's not realistic. We're not going to get that. But this is a way that does it from the inside out and almost organically.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
That's absolutely.
I mean, the next thing we're going to ask, you've sort of covered in a way, thinking about this sort of pocket of the future that sort of currently exists. But you've touched what I wanted to go on to is you started talking about Europe and global, and so I wanted to kind of touch on how your work that kind of cuts across other countries, the work that you've done that is that sort of international work. How do we make these changes, not just in the UK but globally, and what's the importance of why do you work globally and in different countries, and what benefits does how can that bring about a more human justice system quickly, do you think?
Okay, I mean, I'm quite fortunate in that to be able to answer this question with something that works across the board. Like, education is a universal language, right? It doesn't matter which part of the world you're in or which prison you're in what part of the world. I was in South Africa 2 years ago. We visited a prison, Poolsmoor, which holds 4,000 prisoners, and it had 7,500 prisoners in it at that precise moment. Yeah, there was people. I met a guy who'd been on remand for 10 years, waiting to go to court. He'd been on remand for, you guys hearing this, he'd been on remand for 10 years. You want the kicker? That what he was on remand for didn't even get him a 10-year sentence.
Yeah.
Right? But this guy was like crying. He was like, he said that it was my life's dream to go to university. Yeah? My life's dream to go to university. Like, this is a kid who come from a township, lived in a shack. Yeah. His life's dream was to, and he'd got caught up doing something. He's trying to earn a bit of money to get himself to basically his uni interview, right? And got caught up, ended up in prison. When I said to him, would you want to study in prison? Just the thought of it made him cry, bro. Like, he literally started tears. And I weren't even offering him a place. I was just asking him the question. And as he thought about it, he was like, right, imagine being able to do that. Anyway, our model enables that to happen. We've partnered with South African University, Boston City campus. But we've been a bit smart about it. So we've brought their degrees over here because they do produce very cheap, high quality degrees in South Africa. So we're getting them validated over here. So think about 30K for a degree. Their degrees cost like 2 or 3K to produce. We're starting a weird little exchange system. So for every student here that signs registers on one of their courses or degrees, we can fund between 6 and 8 students over there to study at degrees, just off the back of one degree here. So this is what we're on. A 30k degree here will cost us, so giving back their costs, our costs, it leaves us about 20k to play with to be able to fund $2,000 a pop over there, their degrees. So this is what we're doing. Yeah, that's what we're doing there. I was in Paris a couple of years ago as well. We tested and are testing our model in their prisons. And then yeah, going to Spain and Portugal. It's because it's not so much us or what, it's just the model. The model is one that can be replicated, that can work in different justice populations. So that's what I'm on. That's what we're doing. As far and as far afield as possible. And then yeah, with our being a fellow of a Global Freedom Fellow, means that I'm able to exchange ideas and ways of working inside and knowledge with people like ourselves all around the world, which is a massive advantage and one where for one at least, I'm utilizing. That's what we're on.
You've got like a formal chapter, is that, how does that work? And the Global Freedom
Oh yeah.
Scholars Network, can you tell us
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
about
yeah.
that?
So, oh shit, I forget about it. I didn't forget, but so yeah, we are a global network, and we have chapters, countries effectively, that we all work together. So we run a chapter here in the UK, or England and Wales effectively, because we've now got the boys in Ireland who have started their own chapter. But yeah, so us, basically it's about us, bringing together our like-minded people who are collaborators and want to help, those without lived experience that work anywhere within the sector, within education, any of that. And obviously all the guys who do have lived experience, those who are who are active in this work and want to become active, helping, even if it's just knowledge exchange, even if it's just support, even if it's just mentoring, or whatever capacity people want to get involved in within our global networks where they do. The idea is that, again, we as individuals, we as a group, we as a chapter are able to exchange ideas with other chapters around the world, lend support. We congregate and collectively, kind of step up and we'll lend our support, our knowledge, and whatever's going on. If the guys are trying to do something in their own country, they want to get that over the line. They want to approach a minister. They want to change a law. They want to change, update, or change some legislation. Then we all lend our support. We come together as one, which is quite a force we reckon with. We're a global force in that respect. So yeah, that's kind of how it works. The idea is to spread the message, increase, bring as many members on board as possible, and continue to grow as a global community.
And that's where your aeroplane is taking off from on Friday that you mentioned at the beginning.
yeah, literally, yeah. For another part of that, yeah. That's what it looks like.
I'll let you ask the last questions, Jacob.
Yeah. So, what keeps you going when things get tough? Obviously, it doesn't always go to plan most of the time. But what's given you, how have you kept yourself well and been able to be resilient and when things get tough?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of basics. I suppose we'd call them basics in terms of looking after myself, staying healthy and whatnot. But understanding myself is the key, I think, to that, to being able to successfully do that. Understanding who I am, what my needs are. We say this, right? We would all say it on a daily. Oh, yeah, I need to know myself, and I know myself. But you kind of get to realize that you could never fully understand yourself till you've been through some really tough and trying times. And what did you use? What methods work for you? What did you use to cope, to support yourself, to rise above, to transcend, whatever that looks like. And then employing all of those things when they're necessary is absolutely key. So I mean, first and foremost, that's what it is. I need to look after myself, and I do that by understanding what fuels my green arrows and what depletes me, what the red arrows look like. That means keeping myself physically healthy. The two things that I did while I was in gym, like, just going back one sec. The very first education department I was in after I got sentenced, and I was doing my education diagnostic. I spoke to an orderly who was about 17 years into a sentence at that point, and he was like, "Let me give you a piece of advice. You got a very long sentence ahead of you." He's like, "If you exercise your body and exercise your mind, you can get through anything." He said, "In fact, no, you can overcome anything. Anything." I took that advice to heart. It walked me through my sentence, and it's stayed with me out here since. I exercise. I'm in the gym. I was up 6 o'clock this morning. I've already been gym. Sorry, guys. Came back. Do you know what I mean?
Shame, Dan.
Yeah, sorry. Beat the sunshine and all that. But like, that's literally what I do. Right? And then the rest of it is weirdly autonomy. Having the autonomy to do whatever it is I decide I need to do. Having the ability, the capacity, the capability to just if I decide something needs to be done, and just being able to do it, or being able to attack it, approach it, attempt it. That is yeah, those they keep me.
And what about in terms of relationships, with others, and does that make up a big part of keeping well?
That is an iron sharpens iron kind of scenario for me. That I have, obviously, I suppose we all do. We have sections. I'm fortunate that the work side of my relationships are probably some of the most fulfilling relationships I have, and the outcomes of those relationships. So being able to have great relationships in my personal life, obviously my family, my kids, my friends, but then being able to have great results in a work setting, the relationships that I build and cultivate and have done from. I mean, I went from a prison cell to 10 Downing Street within 5 years. Let's put it with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, cultivate relationships just taken me to Downing Street. I was there with the Deputy Prime Minister and Prisons Minister and this one and that one and blah, blah, blah. So I just had to look back for it. I had to take stock for a minute and be like, really? Okay. So that it's what's been able to create a way for us as DWRM and all the students that we have, all the success stories that we put out there, all these guys that you're seeing come out and are doing great things, under us and with us and alongside us and completely separate from us. It's phenomenal. These are relationships that keep me buoyed and active and determined on a day-to-day when things get hard. I love being able to shout about big wins, but they are very few and far between. In 6 years, I would say we've had like maybe 3 or 4 massive wins, right? And every other day we just plug in away. We're just grinding. So exactly. Michelangelo was you know what I mean? It's literally that. We're just plugging away. So yeah, this is how it works. Just day to day.
And then for anyone else, coming through or interested in, this space and justice reform and creating more human, centered justice systems, is there anything that you would recommend for them to like read or watch, or anything that inspired you?
Or do, yeah.
Or do,
we're going to be like, run for the hills. That's my advice. Only half joking as well. No, but no. Do you know what? Reading is my life, right? I devour words and knowledge. It's been my thing for many, many years, right? I would say read as much as you can, but I would say you need to approach your reading with the same balance you approach your diet. Yeah, you need a balanced diet. You need to read the you need to read from an academic source where you can see the background, the data, etc., etc. You need to read from a perspective of someone for and someone against. So in our sector, for example, look, we read the data that supports prisons and how prisons started and where the criminal justice is at, where it was, where, etc., all of that. But then read something from someone with lived experience. Read something from someone who works in the criminal justice system. Read something from someone who writes policy. That getting a balanced understanding of the perspectives, the outcomes, the actions, the policy, the thinking behind it, the reasoning, etc., etc. The need for change, where change is necessary. Like, so when you form your opinions, you're able to. It's like, but a little bit of knowledge is always a very, very dangerous thing. Yeah. So the more knowledge you have, the better. The more balance you have to that knowledge, the more you're able to see landscapes, understand systems, and then therefore be active agents of change where necessary. It's key.
And would you say there's any particular sources of updated information that you tend to use when you're trying to fill in the gaps, or you're looking at a new problem, or trying to learn a different perspective?
Yeah,
there's like podcasts or journals, or do you kind of mix it up with?
See this, yeah. I'm a researcher, Jacob. So there is no one source of reason, one source of info. There's no one source of. There's no fountain of data that I can just ultimately rely on. I write an article and I've got 150 references, so I would take my source.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be like, hey, go and read that or go and read this. No, you're never going to get me doing that. As I said, balanced plate of food. Your food should have your reading should have veg in it. It should have protein. It should, it's literally that. And look, Nina's laughing because she understands exactly what I'm saying. It's exactly that. I can't send you any one place. What I would always say is always check your evidence. The evidence you're reading, always check it. You should always be able to cross-check your evidence. Well, if you're reading something and it purports to be in this or saying that, you should be able to find that data elsewhere.
Yeah.
And if you can't.
Yeah, one of the things I say with like the younger people, even when I'm teaching them relational skills, never mind academic research skills, is knowing the difference between a fact and an assumption.
There you go.
Whether that's assuming how someone feels, or whether that's assuming a piece of information, or whatever it is.
And it doesn't make it any less valuable. If it's somebody's thought or feeling, don't make it any less valuable.
No.
That anecdotal evidence is quants and quals effectively.
Yes.
Both are as equally as valuable, but understand where each one sits and where each one comes from. Again, that's how you get a balanced view. We're all saying the same thing, and the balance is key. People are always too much one side or the other, and this is what I say to a lot of our lived experience researchers as well, right? I know that you've been hammered with just with all the data sources and whatnot that you've been given or that you only had access to. So now you want to go too much the other way and everything lived experience and everything from this one and that one, but it doesn't work either way. You'll get too much of one or the other, and it's about balance. Being effective in this space is being able to turn to one side or another and speak their language or understand the language they are speaking. More importantly,
especially when we're in the space of systems change.
Exactly.
You have to be able to be persuasive.
Precisely. So when someone, when you're trying to make an argument, someone turns around to you and says, yeah, but what about this? And you're like, I don't know that. I haven't looked at that part. I only looking from this. Then your argument falls flat. Yeah. So that's where it's at. For me, I pride myself on knowing our system and the systems that need changing. I understand them intimately, from start to finish, because I can't make change in areas where the area I've come from, the vantage point that I'm looking from or standing in. I can't make change unless I understand the whole, every perspective and every angle. So it's just kind of just that. That's where I'm at. That's me. It's kind of
that's great. That's great. And I really relate to that, because what I realized when I first started studying social sciences and becoming a social scientist, I guess, was that maybe the most important thing I learned was what I was unlearning. I think that's what you said about identity.
Yes.
And that's first, like that negative assumption of education, and there's biases that we have through our lived experience, which aren't right or wrong. It's just actually being able to put them in a context and like distance ourselves and see what's actually going on sometimes.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's the thing about when you're going through that process as well, it's uncomfortable. You find yourself at some point, or probably at large points through that identity shift, where you're in no man's land. You're in a state of stasis, where you're just like, well, I'm not one thing or another. Kind of, what am I?
Yeah,
it's a very uncomfortable place to be, but that uncomfortability is the most necessary part of that process. If you don't find yourself uncomfortable, you haven't changed anything.
Yeah. Embrace the uncomfortability.
Exactly, because it means that you're making change.
That's amazing.
And so maybe human systems aren't just, all about, being safe and, warm and safe. It's creating those spaces where it enables people to be uncomfortable, and with that with pathways where people can form those newer identities and emerge into different versions of themselves, that where it all makes sense, those different parts of our past and our futures.
I loved your analogy, Dan, of like that being buoyed, that sort of like that life raft, that that sort of other people that lift you up and you lift others up and you provide that kind of that buoyancy was such a powerful.
Absolutely. And I just think,
metaphor.
as you said, Jacob, just compound that. It's absolutely, the spaces in between. This is where that being buoyed, being kept afloat by those around you. Having a community, even in a prison, even on a wing, the education department, being uncomfortable. Like you could literally walk into your classroom every day and be like, I still don't know who I am today, but I'm happy in this space of uncomfortability, because this is the part. Is if there's nothing uncomfortable in the middle, then you can't chart the points of change. I started here and I'm now here. You won't notice, and without that space in the middle that's uncomfortable. But then, as you said, Nina, having the support of your peers and people around you, like-minded, who are on similar journeys. It's still kind of the way it all works.
Yeah.
And we just want to create more of that.
We're going to create more of that, definitely.
Yeah.
And we're all on the same page there. And
good.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future and for more chipping.
Definitely. I mean, that never stops, to be fair. Whether it's the mental part, at night, just percolating, or going through the day, it has to keep going. We have to keep chipping away. Before you know it, we'll have a major. You hear people start saying timber all the time, like they're making changes. It's happening. So we just keep at it.
No, it's been a pleasure, Dan, speaking to you.
Yourselves too. Absolutely.
Yeah, can't wait to hear from you on the 28th of April at the next workshop. And you'll have been freshly come back from South Africa and freshly buoyed from your time.
There you go. There you go.
Perfect for talking about vibrant global networks and why they're important. So we really look forward to hearing from you then. And you'll be seeing Jacob in South Africa too. So
I mean, look, I inhabit LinkedIn. It's kind of my space where I like to share. I share a lot of my research on there, the work we're doing, obviously. So look me up, Dan Whyte, on LinkedIn, and that's the Whyte with a Y, not an I, or our company page, DWRM, or on our website. DWRM is always start there. Reach out. If you just want to talk, we're there. If you're in prison, you want to reach out, we have an 0800 number that you can call us on, free phone number. Whatever you want to do. If you're coming out and need support, you need help, you've been out, you want to do some work, whatever that looks like, you can just reach out. We have an info at DWRM, and then all of our just go on our page, have a look, contact us. We're always here to help. We're just here.
No, thanks for your service, Dan. Thanks, listeners, for listening. and together the future is human.
Love that. Cool.